Welcome back to Storytime with Captain Xavier. Today is going to be a little bit different. I'm stepping away from doing HVZ stories and going into something a little bit, much older, and discussing some Lego stuff from my past. The last couple of weeks, the only thing I've been doing in my Lego room has been army building. And I'm actually kind of impressed at how big some of the armies ended up being. This kind of came about because I decided that while I had lots of peasants now, and merchants and soldiers and stuff, I didn't have enough royalty in my castle. I had one king, and I didn't have any other nobles to have in the court, and since there's a throne room in the castle and a banquet hall, I needed nobles. So I went on eBay and went looking for various nobles and found a whole bunch of different kings and queens and princes and princesses that they'd come out in the Castle series that I was never able to get back when I was in college and wasn't buying Legos. So the Kingdoms line and some of the later Castle lines. And so I grabbed them all, got all the kings and queens and all the matching ones. And then I realized that while I hadn't had all the nobles, I had a lot of the soldiers from each of those. And I acquired a bunch recently from people sending me stuff. And so I decided, while sorting all the minifigures out, while trying to get my Lego room organized again, to actually assemble their armies. And then I just kind of got carried away, and well, you can kind of see the result. So I'm going to go through all of the different armies and kind of their brief history as far as how they fit into my collection and my world that I'm creating here. So let's do this. I'm trying this with my new phone. We'll see how the picture quality turns out. The oldest castle that I remember getting was the Black Falcon's Fortress. I got it for my birthday when I don't remember how old I was. But I never actually built it for reasons that need not be gone into. But it always, as that faction always held a special place in my heart, and I always considered them to be the best archers for some reason in my mind. And many, many years later, I finally did build the castle and still think it's one of the best Lego castles that they ever came out with. And I've taken a couple of interesting liberties. I'm using Fox here as the leader is riding on a hippogriff because falcons and all that. And then I've got two cavalry, one squire down there because I always have an odd number of figurines, some sergeants, and then the infantry and the archers. The helmets in the back there that don't have the nasal guards, those will all be archers. Like I said, I've always considered this to be a very heavy archer faction, so there's 4 or 6 units of, they'll usually be sword and shield or spear and shield, and then a boatload of archers. So they're usually on what would be considered the good guys' side, though I haven't decided what faction they will support yet. That's something for the story to build on. So there's the first faction, the oldest faction that I have. What do we have here are the Black Knights, which was one of the largest factions that I have. And this, the first castle that I actually built, and the one that I kept building and rebuilding and modifying and building larger and larger and larger versions of, was the Black Monarch's Fortress, which is another one of my favorite castles. And as a result of it, a lot of the castles I built when I was younger I always built with black. I didn't build any gray castles until the one that I have now. When I decided, got old enough and realized black castles are silly, castles are gray, and actually built one. And there were 2 distinct eras of Black Monarchs. You can see the smaller shields there, and then they came out with the larger ones. And these knights with the helmets that are articulated, that was the kind of the second generation of Black Monarchs. When they came out with the mountains that were built on actual mountain bases, they came out with those guys. The knights there in the first row are what the knights looked like in the first faction. And then they had both red scale armor and the blue scale armor. This is one of the larger factions. I could have made it larger, but I would have had to reduce the sizes of the other ones, and this one was quite large enough. You notice very few of them are actually armed. I haven't gotten around to actually arming the factions. I've just got them reassembled and built. And again, this is another one of those factions who I'm not entirely sure which side they're going to be on when the big siege comes. I haven't decided that. That will be interesting to determine. But I really like how they have the horses with the barding, though they don't have the helmets for the horses. And I really like the different colored plumes with the dragon wings and the dragons on the top and all of that. This will be a fun one. They've got a rich history and a lot of really neat sets went with them. Alright, the next faction we have here are the Crusaders, and they were another one of the earliest factions that came out when they first went to the non-yellow castle. This is the castle that I grew up with in the 80s. Though the visored helmets again did not come out until the 90s. With the King's Mountain Fortress, they started coming out with the armor that the larger, really cool looking armor. I absolutely loved that armor, and I still do. And they had both the armor for these guys as well as for the Black Knights. So both sides were getting the armor. The Black Knights had the black visors. These guys had the gray visors. Yeah, that's really cool. But there was never actually a king. I mean, they had the King's Castle and they had the King's Mountain Fortress, but they never actually came out with a king. The king that we have here is something that I fabricated. They did have the princess there, but they never actually had a king. So I thought that was interesting. I had to make a king to go with this faction because I had the kings for all the later Crusader-style factions. And again, if you look at the troops, the ones with the non-nasaled helms will primarily be archers and possibly spearmen, or maybe halberdiers, I don't know. And then the guys with the nasal helms will be the shields and the spearmen. They're the heavy infantry. And then, of course, we've got the dismounted knights, the men-at-arms, and then, of course, we have the mounted cavalry. There will be a lot more cavalry. The cavalry takes up so much space on these platforms that I didn't mount very many troops. Just a couple in the front, just to give it some pizzazz. So, all right, that's the first of the Crusader factions, and the first couple of factions from my early castle era. So, let me know what you guys think of these factions. Let me know. These guys are generally, nowadays, what I consider the good guys. They will be the ones that are actually defending this castle because it was built... this castle was obviously built very much as an homage, or, I built it in the style of the old King's Castle, that same front design there. And so it's fitting that the Crusaders will be defending this particular castle, though we'll see whether they're allied with the Black Knights or the Dragon Knights or any of the other factions that we will go into, the more fringe factions, as well as the other royal factions, because there's a whole bunch of them, and I had a lot of fun building those armies. So stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It was just something to do on a Friday night. Thank you guys for watching.